What's up, Rad Dads, and welcome back to another episode of the Rad Dads podcast, hosted by none other than the two raddest dads on the East Coast. In studio tonight is Rob. Hello, Rob.
Hello, Sal. How you doing?
Very well. We also have a guest on tonight, and that is Jake Holshue.
That's
Jake,
right.
welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you. So a little bit about Jake. He's a rad dad of two foster kids. He is a level 11 Spirits Wizard of Rogue Ales and Spirits. We'll talk about that in a little bit. In Newport, Oregon. Jake has been in the distilling industry since 2012, distilling and consulting for distilleries, both nationally and internationally. Jake is serving. Are you still serving on your second term of the board of directors?
Second term. Yep.
All right. Still second term on the board of directors for the American Craft Spirits Association. He also chairs the mentorship committee. That's interesting. The consumer facing committee and co-chairs the education committee. So I think Sal would like to be part of the mentorship group.
Absolutely.
So Jake, welcome to the show. Do we miss anything?
No, I think that's, as Austin Powers put it, that's me in a nutshell, right?
So we know you have two kids, but what are their ages and boys, girls? What do you have?
Yeah, so my wife and I adopted two girls from the foster care system 12 years ago. So 17 and 19 are their ages now. They talk a lot about, how foster kids grow up and kind of get spit up and chewed out through the system. And I think one thing I always like to talk about is how hard it is on the foster parents and, kind of our rocky road through the foster system and on this side of adoption and, all the things that come with that.
That's tremendous, man. My wife and I, we actually have three kids, and we're contemplating a fourth. But if we were going to have a fourth, it would have been through adoption. But
Yeah.
that's tremendous. So how has becoming a father changed your life, and what have you learned?
Well, I got married pretty young. I was 19 when I got married, and subsequently we had kids pretty young. If you did the math, technically it would have made sense, right? Like they had big, black rimmed glasses like us. They never not looked like our kids, right? And but they taught me a lot about patience. They taught me a lot about perspective. And, sometimes I say, like, I've slowed down my my thinking process, but kids are always like a million miles an hour, and you're trying to like download this data in real time and like spit out an answer that sounds wise, beyond your years. And like, you got it from some monk on top of a mountainside, and it just, as it comes out, it's like wir Flugen, right? It doesn't like you're trying to do it. So I think the one thing the kids have done is like slowed down, allowed me to process information a lot more quickly and come out with very simple to understand answers. Patience is probably my biggest learned virtue, not only as a distiller, but as a dad as well. Whiskey isn't made overnight. We don't make whiskey for today. We make whiskey for years from now. And the kids have definitely taught me that as well. Both of our girls came with the label of special needs, according to the foster care system. So one of them is on the spectrum, classically the autism spectrum. And the other one has, and, it's hilarious that you guys have this name, but generally speaking, the kids with this designation are called Rad kids. So Rad is an acronym that stands for reactive attachment disorder. And unfortunately, it plagues a ton of kids in foster care. And essentially because of their detachment from loving relationships, they kind of go out of their way to sabotage them because they are, constantly trying to make sure that there's validity behind that loving relationship. So unfortunately, that causes a lot of turmoil a lot of chaos. I've met other dads that have, rad kids. And unfortunately, it's a lot of heartbreak. It's a lot of, not all stories have a happy ending, unfortunately, when it comes to being a dad. And that's one of the realities of, trying to be our most rad is trying to, wheel and deal with any situation that comes our way. But, unfortunately, a lot of heartbreak with true rad kids. And unfortunately, my story is not too dissimilar with that.
And that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, was to talk to other dads that have similar issues or have conversations with dads. So maybe somebody listening would say, oh shit, I'm going through the same thing. Because, I mean, man, men are wired differently. Men aren't wired to open up and share their feelings. Men are wired to keep it bottled in and don't say a word until, unfortunately, it all builds up, and one day you explode, and it might be on your wife, it might be on your kid, it might be on a total stranger. Yep. But that's why we started this podcast, so guys can reach out, or dads can listen and say, holy shit, I'm going through the same thing. I'm not the only one. There's people like me. So yep. That's tough.
Yeah. But as I always say, our eldest is going through a really hard time right now, and she's kind of gone down the path of disowning us as caretakers and doing her own thing. For better or worse, she is pregnant and expecting this fall. So I'm about to be a rad granddad. But that being said, she's walked herself out of our life, and that hurts. And it was, I think, the one thing that I felt, to put it in words is, there was some drama. She had to get, felt like she had to get out of the house. She went through a couple of youth homes, ended up, unfortunately, homeless at one point. She's going through the hard times like Journey, right? And I want to say that it felt like I ran a 10-year race with that girl, and I fell right on my face right before the finish line. When she left, she was 17, and basically aged out of the youth home system, despite, years of care and going on trips and teaching everything, right? So I want to say that, unfortunately, being a dad, there aren't always happy stories. But the good news is that her younger sister is crushing it as a single child right now. She is applying to her first colleges this year, a couple of which are Ivy League or adjacent to that level. And as I tell my wife, they let people in the Baseball Hall of Fame with sub 500 numbers, right? And, if we can bat 500 with being parents, that's Hall of Fame numbers. So, trying to find that perspective is really important.
A lot of our questions are repeated for various dads that come on the show, because we feel like it keeps a consistency with the dads and the learnings and people who listen. Like, we'll hear different stories. But I think this question for me hits home a little bit more for you.
Yep.
And I'm really intrigued on what your answer is going to be. But heard it already in the first couple of minutes we were discussing. But what challenges have you faced raising your kids, and kind of what would you change? If you had to do it again, is there anything you would change to make it better for your older, or did you, to your point, did you give everything you had?
I have always lived my life with no regrets, right? We live and love intensely. I have made a lot of sacrifices, and certainly my family has as well, to support my career in distilling. All that beautiful nutshell of a career, Jake, this is your life, that you did at the beginning of the show. Those were paid and sacrificed for, well, I'd like to say myself, and I worked hard at that. My family sacrificed a lot. We've moved across this country so many miles in so many different ways. And I certainly wish I could have provided more of a one location for my kids to grow up. But at the same time, I think that moving them, because we started in Montana, which is where we adopted them through the foster care system in Montana. Go Bobcats. And then we moved to a little sleepy town on the East Coast called Baltimore, Maryland. So Podunk, Montana to Baltimore. And then we went to Newport for my first stint at Rogue. And then I left Rogue back in 2018. Went down to California. Heard there was gold down there. So did the 2 years stint down in California. And then we came back to the Oregon coast because it was, for me and my family and the girls especially, like this is the only place that really felt home other than Montana. And I love Montana, and we could certainly talk Montana forever. But yeah, I think anything that I ever start to frame in a regret or I could have done differently, I think I honestly did the best I could with, what little training we all have. Like there's no fucking book that comes with, okay, here's a kid, here's the book, read the book, do the thing, right? That doesn't exist. And if there is, God, wouldn't that be so much simpler, especially as a guy? Like, just give me the list. I'll do the list. So yeah, I honestly believe that we gave the girls the best upbringing we could. I do still have hope for the eldest, but hope for both. Like you do the best you can, you stick a bow on them, you send them out the door, and you say, anybody who interacts with these young humans is going to have to put up with my sarcasm and my wife's wit, and God bless anybody who puts up with it and spread it. So I don't have regrets, man.
So for that adventure, coming back to Rogues, all you got was level 11.
Yeah. So
you couldn't pull a level 20.
Well, in the D&D realm, which is what I
guess what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of our listeners will, but go
yeah.
ahead.
So for the super geeky dads out there, at Rogue, at a very particular point in time when I started, we were either the most reverent or completely irreverent to job titles, because it never quite sums up what you do for a company, right? Like head distiller is technically what I do, but I'm also a janitor. I clean toilets and put toilet paper on rolls and clean up messes. I am a cook. I am a warehouser. I'm a head blender. I'm a raw materials purchaser / buyer, right? Like it doesn't matter what you call yourself, or it does. So I started at Rogue as a level 10 Spirits Wizard. Now in the D&D realm, level 10 still is nothing to be trifled with. We're talking spells that can absolutely change planar material, how we exist on this plane as we know it. But level 20 is kind of where it tops out, right? That is demigod kind of changing the fabric and weave of multi-planar existences. So between when I started at Rogue and when I retire at Rogue, that's how I get from 10 to 20, I guess, in my mind. And I'll just give myself levels because no one tells me what to do. I do what I want.
So, I mean, you basically do what's got to get done. You do what you do to get things done and make it to the next day.
Absolutely.
But going back to what you were saying about your daughters, I know and I feel that your eldest, deep down inside, I think she still knows that you guys love her. And I think she knows that you guys have done everything you can. And you guys just continue to support her and love her. And that's tremendous.
It's just you don't get to do it on your terms, right? You basically resign the fact that whatever relationship you have with a child that goes AWOL in this way, they'll figure it out. And I told her pretty kind of midway through her transition, if you will, that I believed that the reason she was as successful at it as she was because of her mom and I, right? Like, we gave her some very important tools and skills. We always call it the tool belt with mental illness. And those tools and skills change over time depending on how mental illness pops up. But we gave her a certain set of skills, much like Liam Neeson, that she has in her tool belt. And, that's why she was successful. I doubt she would give us that credit, but, someday we're all going to be laughing about all of this and,
Absolutely.
We are now. So.
Absolutely. And the main thing is you have no regrets, which is, and you're it's great. And your youngest is crushing it. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the challenges and obviously moving back and forth across the country and prioritizing your work definitely weighs into a work-life balance. Have you been able to effectively balance your time between work and family life?
So I love this question because I do not believe in work-life balance, and I don't think you guys should either. Balance implies equality, implying that you spend equal time between work and home. And we both know that's bullshit, right? You spend more time at work, right? Like, we all spend more time at work. Our usable day is spent 80% at work, and then we have a couple hours at the end of the day to like cram some home life shit in. And then we have weekends, but we're so flippin' tired from doing the 80% waking hours that are so no. Like, balance implies equality, and I don't think it could ever be equal.
That's the best fucking answer I've ever heard to that question.
I do believe in work-life harmony because they should be harmonious. They should both feed you in different ways, intellectually, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Like, our work feeds us in those ways. If only we are open to understand how it affects us. And so I have personally not been super successful at work-life harmony. I think it's an ebb and flow thing. I don't think it's you either succeed or you don't succeed. I think there are weeks when we get it and we crush it and we do good work and at home and everything seems to jive. And then there are the other 51 weeks a year in which we prioritize one or the other and fail at the other and feel bad and guilty and all those silly feelings that dudes feel because we're humans, apparently. And so, yeah, I mean, work-life harmony is what I preach. It is a practice as well, and it's something you can do intellectually by reviewing every week. What did I crush? What did I fail at? Yeah, that's my answer to work-life.
So I think one of the key ingredients to either work-life balance or work-life harmony is whatever you're doing at that moment is you need to turn off where you just left or where you were just at and be present. So you need to be present in the moment of what you're doing, whether it's work, you be present at work and you forget about home life. If you're home, you forget about work and think about home life. Yep. Our father, I think it was our Father's Day episode. I read a statistic on the amount of time that dads or parents spend with their children on average daily. And
whatever the answer is, I bet it sucks.
It's crazy.
Like, I don't even need to know the statistic. It sucks, right? Like, so you have to maximize that time.
So men, 85 minutes a day, and women, I think 120 minutes a day.
Yep.
With the kids, it's insane. Yep. It's nuts. Another statistic. By the time our kids are 12 years old, we have already spent 75% of our time with them. So yeah, it is crazy.
And it never would be enough, right? Like, even if you won the, whatever dream you have, right? Like winning the lottery, whatever, like you'll find something else. It's never enough. Millionaires still don't spend enough time with their kids, right? It's not just as poor working schlubs, right? It affects everybody.
Well, sure. I mean, it's either you sacrifice your time with your family and you become that CEO, and then by the time you're making all that money where you think, okay, I'm making enough money for my kids and now they're going to be satisfied. By the time you realize that your kids are, possibly graduating college and you've missed all that time. So now when that CEO is ready to spend time with his kids,
Yep.
That money you gave them to buy them their new bags, their new shoes, your new car, that ain't going to mean much, man. But yeah, that is a number one challenge. So growing up, we've always had family traditions.
Mm-hmm.
What family traditions have you done with your family and hope that your kids carry on to their families?
I love this story about my dad. My parents divorced when I was pretty young. And so we do the weekends with dad when we still lived in this greater Seattle area. But then we do like every summer and every other holiday shared thing. And my dad used to call the egg something. It was like leftover something, like taco meat if you had it, or just like whatever fell out of the fridge, you would throw eggs on it, throw some cheese on it, throw between a couple slices of toast and forget about it, man. You're good to go. And my favorite thing is one time he forgot the eggs, so we just had something. But like, I carried that on like Saturday breakfast with dad. Like, that's, I have a love of food. And that's the one thing, like I tried to pass down to both my kids. My eldest and I would always be in the kitchen cooking up something. Spam and eggs on Saturday is kind of dad's treat. But flapjacks on the cast iron, or we'll always feed ourselves, right? And food traditions are probably pretty important to me. It's how we tell the story, of our people, right? I make a killer borscht that was my great grandmother's recipe, right? Like these are food traditions. My grandfather, an ex-World War II railroad worker, would always bring us like fresh crab and seafood when he'd go up to like Anacortes, which is like north of the Seattle area, and like bring back fresh crab to us in Montana, us poor landlocked folk. He'd bring this beautiful seafood. So, when we moved to the Oregon coast, going fishing, going crabbing and clamming with the girls, they knew how to pick up a crab pretty early. Without getting pinched. So, food traditions, that kind of, I don't think I could ever consider myself a hunter nor a gatherer in the strictest of definitions. But, growing up in Montana, we'd go hunting, right? We'd put literal meat on the table. And, here on the Oregon coast, while there are some hunting opportunities, and, I don't know if I'm just getting old or tired, but I don't want to hike a mountain to kill something anymore. So if it's in my front yard, like it's dead, but like I'm really tired. So yeah, I mean, just trying to carry on those traditions, I think are important from me and my side.
So work smarter, not harder, right? Instead of climbing the mountains and killing something, just right out your front door.
Right out the front door. And I'm actually kind of back in the hills a little bit here in Newport. So Newport literally sits on the water. So Pacific Ocean right there, Yaquina Bay feeds or from the Yaquina River. I'm south of here in like unincorporated South Beach. So I'm kind of butting up against the National Forest. We have about 3 acres out there. And there are elk and bear and deer and all kinds of stuff. Like I said, if it's in my front yard, it's gone. But I am not hiking any more hills or any more mountains to go kill another animal.
Rad Dad's rapid fire round.
Yep.
All right. So favorite book?
Favorite book. Gosh, there's one I go to a lot is the Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Wow, I thought you were going to come up with some like dorky D&D book or.
I mean, I spend a lot of time in those too. I generally don't learn many life lessons inherently from D&D source books, but adventures do teach us things about humanity and those kinds of things. But life lessons, one I always go to.
Favorite food?
Do you want a specific cuisine or do you want a dish?
Oh, I'll take both.
One of my favorite foods right now, and I'm gonna, because I'm not bilingual. I'm barely monolingual at times. Birras tacos, the ones you dunk that are like grilled, those are like legit, and I love those every time I had them. Cuisine wise, Japanese cuisine intrigues me all the time. Sushi's. Yeah. What was the next question? Let's go.
Favorite sports team?
Ooh. So in Montana, there are no sports teams other than college, which it's Bobcats over Grizzlies. All the Montana folks listening, it's FTG, and you know what that means. But favorite sports team, because Montana doesn't have any professional sports, you got, a la carte. So when I was a kid, I didn't want to be a Seahawks fan or a Broncos fan or a Minnesota fan because everybody was a fan of those. Like I wanted something different. And like all of my life, I have always appreciated the underdog. And at the time, my team was the original 0-12 team of the NFL, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Our fortunes have changed over the years, and I'm very okay with that. Yeah, Buccaneers.
Nice. Favorite dad moment?
Favorite dad moment. I do remember this one time we were at a restaurant, and I think the girls were pretty young, and I remember giving them the old finger guns. And I went, pew, pew. And my youngest turns at me with like these wide eyes, and she's like, Dad, you're a monster. I was like, yeah, I guess I'm just cold-blooded.
Favorite vacation spot?
I don't know how to answer this because we talked about how ineffectual and how poorly I generally do work-life balance. But one place I would love to go is I would love to go to northern France. They make a particular product called Calvados. And Calvados is apple brandy of the Normandy region. They've been making it there for several hundred years. And I would like to find every family that's been distilling it for like several hundred years and go into their cellars and be drunk for months. Like that sounds like a brilliant fucking vacation to me.
I thought you were gonna say and get their recipes and learn it. You're like, no, just drink it.
Just go be a lush. Just eat cheese, the stinkiest cheese, apple brandy. Sounds like a wonderful vacation to me.
Oh my god! All right, best dad joke.
So best dad joke. I've been thinking about it. I think one of my favorites is, why was the color green notoriously single?
Why?
It was always so jaded.
Well played.
Mm-hmm,
so before we wrap up the episode, can you just tell us a little bit about Rogue, what products they make, and what's your favorite product?
So Rogue, for all the beer nerds out there, this is the Rogue Ales and Spirits, class of 1988. So our former brewmaster, John Meyer, had been in the brew house for 30 plus years, finally enjoying his retirement. His number 2 was taken over. So we have world-class ales and lagers. All of the beer goes into all 50 states. There is not a state, including Puerto Rico and other territories Guam, that we don't have our beer. We also have CBD products as well. So we have a line of CBD seltzers that keeps us well hydrated and so uninflamed. And where I come in is I'm on the spirit side. So we do have whiskey. I make a lot of whiskey day to day. So we make Dead Guy whiskey. Dead Guy being our flagship brand over on the beer side. Dead Guy Ale, which is actually a Maibach in style. Maibach inspired ale, if you will. But we took that and distilled it into a whiskey. And now we are relaunching Dead Guy whiskey into a new platform of really a family of products on the spirit side. So we have Dead Guy whiskey, Dead Guy stout cask finish, Dead Guy wine cask finish. And for those cool kids on the West Coast, you might even see a Dead Guy finished in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. So, stay tuned for all of that. But Rogue is a family, a beverage family of sorts. So there's something really for everybody here. For the kids out there, we also have a Rogue root beer and a Rogue cucumber citrus soda, which on a nice hot day is refreshing AF, as the kids are saying. So yeah, we have a little bit of everything. And honestly, I will tell you that we've even looked into the THC beverage business as well as a potential avenue for revenue. And, stay tuned for that over the next several years to see if we actually do it. Who knows?
Is there a particular whiskey you prefer?
A Rogue product or outside of Rogue? Because I got opinions about whiskey.
I would like your general opinion, but typically,
So Rogue makes American single malts. So we are basically making Scottish style malt whiskey here in the United States. Dead Guy is really unique, and we have a lot of different finishing projects that we do. One of my favorites was actually a collaboration with a Texas distillery. I was down there a few years ago and found that they had all these pecan trees in Texas, which I'm not overly familiar with Texas, so forgive my ignorance, all you beautiful Texan folks. But we begged the question, could we actually build a barrel out of pecan trees? And so actually got on the horn with the Texas Pecan Growers Association, an organization I totally knew existed before that phone call, and found out they do have trees large enough for us to cooper barrels out of them. So we have our own cooperage here in house. So we made a couple of pecan barrels from Texas pecans. So that one's coming out here this next year. And I'm pretty excited about that just because it's so different than anything else we've really done. In the world of whiskeys, someone once told me this about beer, and I think it's the same for whiskey as well. Not every beer is for everybody, but there is a beer for everybody. There is something out there that you will like. I love all whiskeys. I haven't met, there's a quote. It's like, there's no such thing as a bad whiskey, just some that are slightly better than others, I guess. So I think in the one that I go to on single malt a lot is Talisker Storm, in the Scotch realm. I also like Lagavulin, like Nick Offerman. They make beautiful Scotch. Here in the United States, one that continuously gets me right in the flavor profile is anything out of Cascade Hollow, aka George Dickel. Paul and I's good friend Nicole Austin is absolutely crushing it down there. She is, her Bottled and Bond came out 2019, won Best Whiskey of the Year, first year out. So I always look forward to their new releases. Rye is a thing I like and have made a lot of and drank a lot of. One that I'm liking right now is actually from a former company I worked at, the Baltimore Spirits Company, making Maryland style rye in Maryland. Who knew that was a thing? But their epic rye is absolutely phenomenal. Their standard release, pot stilled rye, it really changes the flavor profile. I like everything. We could talk for hours.
That's a whole lot of whiskey and beer.
Mm-hmm.
So one last question that we always ask all the dads. If you can impart words of wisdom to other dads, what would it be?
Words of wisdom. Take your time, slow down. You know, this society we're in commands going faster all the time. Go fast, do fast, go fast, love fast, learn fast, work fast, sleep fast, go fast, right? And like when I look back upon all the dad moments and the shiny parts of my memory, right? There's dull parts and sad parts and dark parts, but like the shiny, beautiful things of being a dad, the ones that stand out the most are when like I take a deep breath and like I fully realize what's going on, like a backyard barbecue, the sprinklers going, kids are having great time. They're in our house, when a little girl gets too excited, we call them the squealy squeals, right? That high pitch just like gets you right there. The happy noises, right? When you can literally see that sprinkler going in slow motion and the smell of meat and, just the beautiful sun and how it felt. If you can slow down and appreciate, the five senses around you, what does it smell like? This moment in time of happiness, what does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does it sound like? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And if you can process all of these things, I think it makes us more in tune to those happier moments later in life when there's a lot of going on, and kids will always, the moments they remember are not the moments you remember. And like, it's always fun to go back and be like, well, what do you remember about that trip? Well, we couldn't find anything at the gas station, so we went to another like, it seems like such an inconsequential detail of that day, but kids will latch on to these really unique moments in that time. So if you could just slow down, appreciate the good times, know that there's going to be bad ones, but keep your chin up and just keep grinding, man. That's my recommendation.
That's so true, man. We have been made to go fast. Do everything fast. Learn, sleep, work, that you forget to slow down and enjoy the moment.
Yep.
But Jake, thanks for coming on the show. It was a pleasure chatting with you. It was a pleasure meeting you. Fantastic story. And it's amazing. Thanks for opening up. Keep doing what you're doing. And like I said before, I think deep down inside your oldest knows that you guys are doing what you have to do, and you guys still love her. Yep. That's tremendous.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jakes.